Alright guys, so my uncle was here for the weekend and we basically got some electrical work done, so his electrical system's now all up and running. So I guess we'll take it out. He'll take it over and give you guys a quick tour.
Howdy, welcome to my van. This is a 2015 Ford Transit. I've had it for about 4 years. I bought it new, and I spent a good probably a year building out the first half of the build, and then life kind of got in the way. I was putting money aside for college fund for my son, but we used it as a weekend getaway vehicle, and it had just enough elements in it that we could basically use it as a sleeper. So if you look up top, it has a roof tent right there, and you access that from the back. So how you access the rooftop tent is via this ladder. I also have a collapsible ladder that's stored up top that I use to access the front, and these deploy via self-actuators. It's an Italian tent that's been manufactured for about 50 years, so they have a really long track record. I have Ford crossbars for my roof mounting system, 2 for the tent, and then 2 for the 100-watt solar panels. I installed those about a month ago, and I also have a fan that you'll see that's in between, and the tolerance from left to right is I have about a 1/4 inch on either side, so it was really touch and go to get everything to fit on there. But it's all dialed in. I also created a custom fairing to divert the wind, because when you're going 70 miles an hour and you get crosswinds, you definitely want to keep that load off the solar panels if you can. So that was an interesting part of the build. So if you come on inside, here's the main cabin. When I designed this, the utilization of the space is really what drove the design, as opposed to the systems. A lot of van builds that I've seen, like if you're into cycling or you have other toys, a lot of people would choose to store those elements in the van, which is fair because you don't want your stuff to be, stolen. But what I did with the bikes is I have a super heavy duty chain, and I store the bikes on the outside, so I have all this space available, and that was really important to me. So this particular space basically functions in any number of ways. So this is a changing area. We have storage for clothes, his and hers, on this side, and then we have storage for food on this side, along with a little hanging hammock. And then these benches fold up so I can access and again I have these self actuators which will support the weight. These are rated at 60 pounds. These pillows probably don't weigh that much, but it actually works out pretty well in terms of the design of that. And then I have these bars that come across here, placed in this configuration. Close these, and then I flip this up, flip this. Now I have a bed, and then I have an additional pillow that's stored here that goes in the middle. Nice. So these pop back up. Stow these guys away. And then the third function I have is I unscrew this, and then I have a post that fits right in there, and then I have a table which is stowed away up top that I then can set up. So this is more or less like a picnic table configuration where I can sit down, have a table seating for 4. So that works really well. The other aspect of the design that I really like is when we pull up somewhere, we have a beautiful view either of the ocean or the, some water feature. We can open up these doors and you really feel the outdoors. It's a great feeling to have that opening. So that's a great feature I really love about this. Now, getting back to the systems, Alex was a tremendous help in navigating through the electrical system. Now, like I said, I designed the overall design with space, sort of the maximum volume and elbow room that I could have, and the components were sort of the second fiddle to that. So I have a 22-gallon water tank here that I fill from the exterior. I have an instant hot water heater here with my water pump, and then I have my gas lines, which I have yet to install, but will come up through that post and then tie into a 4-way connector. One goes to the water heater, another goes to my 2-burner cooktop, and then the third one goes to my space heater. Now over here, we have 12 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And you can see that this is a very tight configuration. I have a 150 amp hour battery that I purchased from China, and that just fits in there. I have a 1,000 watt inverter, and then a Redarc smart charger that alternates between the solar panels and my 2 AGM starter batteries. I have my fuse block right there, and then also a way to monitor my charging system. So if we go back to my little control panel here, you'll see that I get my readout on what my solar panels are charging right now. It's pretty overcast, but we're still getting some charging capacity, which is great. The other elements of this little control panel here are, this is going to control my hot water, how hot I want the hot water to be when it leaves the hot water heater. This is my thermostat that ties into my space heater. This is a CO2 device that will detect any CO2 amounts in the cabin that could be, create a hazard. And then this here is for my fan. So that deploys the fan, opens the lid, and then I can switch in 10% increments how much air I want to take out of the van, or I can reverse that the other way so that I'm actually blowing air in. So that's a pretty nifty device, and I'm so psyched to finally have that hooked up, because I've had this installed for quite a number of years, but it's never been live, so it's great to have that. The other thing I'm super excited about is the lights. You can see there I have 5 LED lights, and those are located in such a way that when I come through the slider, I can turn that on and off, and I can also adjust how much light through this dimmer I have in the cabin. So that's super nifty. I have an outlet here which goes to my inverter, and let me talk to you a little bit about the cooking facility. So I have this cutting board here. That's an additional surface I can use if I'm prepping food, but I don't need burners. If I do need the burners, I can either shift this over here, and I can use that as a workspace. I also have this pull out here for a cutting board, which is more space. In addition to that, I designed a panel here on the side which turned out to be a very challenging design problem because I tried all these different types of hardware and none of them worked because this panel is flush with my cabinet as opposed to being surface mounted. So I have two magnetic latches that hold it in place. So I tip this up and then I design this little sort of flip out arm, which then interfaces with two holes on the bottom. Now I have another workspace, so I can move this here. I can put hot items here. I can do, more prep work. I have this sink, which has a flip up faucet as well, and a very nifty Vitafrigo, which is an Italian refrigerator. You can see that it has a lot of space, and I opted to not order the version that has ice because I never really need ice, and this gives me much more volume for food and beverage storage. I've got beverage storage here. I've got a little pull-out crisper, and even a little nifty light there. So the motor is located on the back towards the bottom, and so what I did to provide some air flow so that there's not too much heat buildup, I have a small vent here, which is my low, and then I have two vents up here, and that's going to create some convective air movement through the bottom of this cabinet and up through here. So any heat that's generated behind the refrigerator will come out. I also have a very nifty way of storing all of my spices, and you can see that I cut out these holes and also used PVC pipe and incorporated that into the design. And then you can see that I also lined that with this somewhat spongy material. So my tolerance, when I stick that in there, it's literally the same diameter. And so it won't rattle around. This thing's not going to pop out. There's nothing worse than, an accumulation of rattles and sounds in the van. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out. Let's see, what else? Oh, another very challenging part of this build was to create a toilet compartment. You can see that it has two tracks here on either side. The real challenge with this was to create a cabinet that had very little tolerance back to front, so that the sliders and the gliders would work correctly. So getting the hardware in and getting it all to work was an incredible challenge, I tell you. There were moments where I thought it was never going to happen. So I have a little toilet here that's self-contained. After a couple of days, I just take it to a toilet, I just empty it, and so I have a little compartment space for toilet paper back there. And then I've got additional beverage storage in here for wine as well as for beer, and then a container for my puppy's dog food, Cruz, and then trash. Definitely need a place for trash. I've got larger storage compartments here, and this was really important because, like, when you're in a van, things tend to go into chaos. Like, you're on the road and it's just so easy for things to just not find their place. So it was important for me to have a pretty large scaled storage space where I could put coats and smaller backpacks. This shelf here can pop out so that I can put larger items if depending on what the trip is. Then I have additional storage up here. This is a little laundry bin that nests right in there, and then more miscellaneous storage there as well. Coming up front, we have the dog, as I mentioned, and the dog is always spilling his water and his food. So I just devised a little magnet that I countersunk into my cabinet, and it stays put. It's not going to go anywhere. So we can fill that with water, get on the road, not worry about it spilling. That's pretty cool. And then these chairs are chairs that you can swivel. In fact, this one here is probably a little easier to illustrate. So if we have a view out towards the west instead of towards the south, then we have a way to, you know, create a sort of face-to-face sort of seating area. That's pretty neat. This is another storage area that I have for outdoor seats. And if you zoom in here, you'll see that there's a metal cage that I built and then bolted that to the floor of the van, knowing that this is where I was going to mount my seat. So I built the wood cabinetry around that. But the number one priority here was safety. This thing is absolutely bomb-proof. So in an accident, this is going to do really well and support these chairs really well. There's also steel inside of this cabinet, which supports part of these seatbelt restraints. So that was another safety feature. Here's another miscellaneous cabinet. And I added also additional speakers. I have 2 in the back, 4 in the front, and these here I added aftermarket. So let's see what else. All in all, I'm super impressed with the Ford Transit. I decided to go domestic instead of going with a Sprinter. I'd heard, you know, just issues about how expensive maintaining the Sprinter is or can be. So I'm really satisfied with the Ford support that I've had. And so all in all, I'd give it really high thumbs up. So I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I really want to thank Alex for all of his tremendous work. He really made this part of the build, the electrical, which was to me the most intimidating. He walked me through step by step on the components that I needed, and just in the last 24 hours we got everything hooked up, and it's all thumbs up. It's all systems go. So good luck with whatever you all are doing out there, and was happy to share my van build.
Cool, man. Thanks, Pat.